you want to follow along with today's message, you should have been given an outline on your way in. You can follow along with that this morning. So we are in week 4 of a series that I've called Faithful, and that is filling our faith when the world is running on empty. And I just want to do a recap of where we have been before we jump into where we are going to be at today. So we started our whole series by taking a look at a story about a Roman centurion who comes to Jesus and asks Jesus to help heal his servant. And Jesus is willing to follow him to his house. And the Roman centurion's faith was so great, he says, no, you don't have to come. All you have to do is say the words, and I know it will be done. And we get this word that Jesus was amazed by his faith. And we see the word amazed in Greek only a couple of times within the gospel text. And when we see it, Jesus is amazed by two things. It's either by a person's great faith or a person's lack of faith. Those were the two times that we ever see the word amazed, right? Wasn't that he was amazed at somebody's knowledge or amazed at who somebody was or what they did? He was amazed by their great faith or their lack of faith. All right? That's when we see that Greek word that we translate as amazed. And so at the end of week 1, we asked ourselves, okay, so what is this faith? Where do we, and how do we get it? Right? Where does it come from and how do we get it? And so on that week, I said that we were going to be talking about 5 faith catalysts that I believe God uses to ignite our faith and strengthen our faith. In other words, how we get that great faith that we were talking about. And the first faith catalyst that we talked about was practical teaching. Okay? Practical teaching, Jesus not only taught, but Jesus' desire was that our faith would not just stay up here, that it would not be cerebral knowledge. Okay? That it would actually lead us and activate our faith so that the world could see our faith. Right? So that it just wouldn't be cerebral. That we would move from just believing in Jesus to actually following Jesus. All right? But believing in Jesus and following Jesus are two totally separate things. And believing in Jesus is easier than following Jesus. Following Jesus is way harder. And when I grew up, all I heard was, I just believe in Jesus, believe in Jesus, believe in Jesus. Because the church realized somewhere along the way, this following stuff is kind of hard. You know? And so we like the easy route, okay? So we took the easy route. We believe in Jesus. I rarely heard growing up follow Jesus. Rarely heard that. I heard a lot about believing in him. Rarely heard about following. But Jesus, here's what I wanted us to remember. Jesus always started with follow me. He never started with believe in me. The believe in me happened once they followed. Every time Jesus invited someone into relationship with him, he always went to follow me before he went to believe in me. So then last week we looked at the second faith catalyst, and that was personal ministry. Personal ministry is showing up. All right? It's showing up. It's not doing ministry from afar. We have to actually show up. And when we show up personally, when we step out of our comfort zone to serve people by showing up, God uses that to strengthen our faith. And I said, what the church needs now is we need a group of followers who will show up and serve rather than a group of followers who will show up and sit. It is what it is. Sorry, I can't mince words anymore. Right? We need people to show up and serve rather than to show up and sit. Sitting is the believing part. Look, we come, we sit, and we do all of this because we believe in Jesus, right? Yes. We serve Jesus, and in the serving Jesus, that's the following part. Okay? So we need people not to just believe, but to also follow. Not to just sit, but to serve. Right? The only way we are going to stop the decline of mainline church today is by having people just show up and serve, not show up and sit. We need people to show up and serve. Thank you, yes. So, And we said this last week. I had everybody say this last week. We get into a habit where we're like, oh, I don't have anything. I don't have any time. I don't have any money. I don't have any talent. I don't have anything. We're like the disciples standing on top of the hillside with 5 loaves and 2 fish going, well, we ain't got very much. And every time we say that, Jesus says, give it to me. Because our little bit in the hands of Jesus always provides leftovers. And so this is what we came to the conclusion about. I'll do what I can do, and I'll trust God to do what only God can do. Right? Let's say that together again this week to make sure that we got it. I'll do what I can do and trust God to do what only God can do. And here's how I know this works. Because a small group of followers of Jesus 2,000 years ago had no clue what they were doing. They were like, well, he said to go to Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, to the ends of the earth. We don't even know where the ends of the earth is. We don't know what it looks like. We don't even know how to get there. We don't even know how to do any of this stuff. But you know what? We're going to show up and do what we can do. And we're going to trust that God will do what only God can do. And guess what? We're here because of that. It works. So today we're going to talk about the third of the 5 faith catalysts. And that is providential relationships. Okay, providential because I believe it's a God thing. Okay? It's the people who you sit back and you're like, I am so glad that he or she or that couple showed up in my life. Or I wouldn't be here had it not been for fill in the blank. Right? I wouldn't be where I am today if it were not for those people. They're providential relationships. They're relationships. There are people that God placed in your path for a reason and made a difference. And you're like, wow, if they wouldn't have shown up, I wouldn't be exactly where I'm at today. And I think all of us are already thinking who that person, who that couple, who that is. Right? Because we just know that there are those people. And I can list you a ton of people who are in my life for a reason. And I'll tell you, most of them were in my life because I actually showed up. I trusted God with what I had and let God do what only God can do. And these are providential relationships. They help strengthen my faith. My relationship with Pastor Roland, providential relationship. My relationship with Johannes Wazi in Ethiopia, providential relationship. I met him on the first time that we went to do a water well. I wasn't there for Acts of Wisdom. I was there for our water wells. Providential relationship. My relationship with Pei and Alice McKay, providential relationship. Because I stepped outside of my comfort zone. I showed up to serve. I didn't know what I was doing, but I trusted God to do what only God could do. So I'm going to tell you 2 stories of providential relationship. One's personal, one's biblical. But I believe both of them are biblical. All right? But one happens to be a personal story of mine. One happens to be one that we actually find in Scripture. Okay? And my providential story is a story of providence. And it starts more than likely back in 1998 at Texas Lutheran University. My sophomore year as a theater major, when all of a sudden my campus pastor comes to me and says, have you ever thought about ministry? No. Well, you should. Okay. So I thought about it. And I said, I'll add the major. I could still get out of here in 4 years. You know, won't hurt anything. So I decided to add theology as my second major. Still would graduate in 4 years, so it was no big deal. I'd figure it out once I got to be a senior. So senior year came around. Now it's time to make a decision. What am I going to do? Well, I really felt God was nudging me. This is what we talked about last week, nudging me towards ministry. Well, that was way out of my comfort zone. My comfort zone was on the stage. All right? Ministry was something totally different for me. But yet there was something that I felt God was nudging me to. So I decided to go into ministry. Now the question is, where am I going to go? Right? Am I going to go to Trinity Seminary in Columbus, Ohio? That was one of my choices where I was accepted. Or am I going to go to Lutheran Seminary of the Southwest at the University of Texas in Austin? Well, this Texan don't like snow. So that was an easy choice. Seminary of the Southwest it is. Now, when you go to seminary, it's a 4-year master's program rather than a 2-year master's program. All right? And on your 3rd year, you have to actually go and do a whole year of internship at a church. Well, I was assigned to go to Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina. And if you've ever been to Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina, the road of racism is still really strong. You can literally draw a line between one community and the other. And I got assigned to one of the oldest African Lutheran churches in the United States. That's where I got assigned. And so, talk about feeling totally inadequate. But again, fine, I'll show up and do what I can do. God, I'm going to trust that you can do what only you can do. Went, found an apartment, decided I was going to stay and not move back. I was actually going to go to Duke Divinity and finish up there. Registered, got signed up at Duke Divinity, got the apartment. 3 weeks before I go, I got a call from the seminary saying, it ain't going to work. I said, okay, so now what am I going to do? I mean, at this point, I thought all of the spots were filled up. No, we got a few more spots. Give us a week. So I gave them a week. They called me back. Okay, we found you a site. It's a site that has no pastor. They've been working with interns. But there's a retired Navy chaplain who will be your supervisor. He comes in twice a month, okay, just to preside over communion, but you'll be preaching every week, okay? They also don't have a secretary, so you'll be printing bulletins. Oh, and by the way, they don't have a janitor either, so you'll be cleaning the church when it's all said and done. I mean, that was it. I was the whole thing. It was a small mission congregation. That was the whole thing. When they say other duties as assigned, it was other duties as assigned. And so I was like, okay, so where is this place? Council Bluffs, Iowa. So quickly I went to my computer. Where is Council Bluffs, Iowa? I had no clue whatsoever. So I saw it and I was like, oh, great. And you know you're in trouble when you show up and the first gift that the congregation gives you is a snow shovel. No lie. So I was like, oh, great. So the Texan was finally going to experience snow. Unfortunately, it was one of the worst winters that they had in 25 years. So I was like, great. So I go to Council Bluffs, Iowa. All right? And while there in October, on a Thursday afternoon, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I decide that, you know what, I haven't eaten lunch yet. So I go down to the local Cracker Barrel. The lunch crowd is left. It is entirely empty. And the hostess says, pick any table you want. So I pick a table in front of the kitchen, and out walks this gorgeous blonde. And lunch turns into dinner, because I sat there for at least 2.5 hours. I gave her a really great tip, and I left her my number hoping she would call. And 16 years later, here we are. That was a providential relationship in my life. Because I'll tell you why. Not only did she become my wife and she became the mother of my children, which changed my life forever, but she also was somebody who was put off by organized religion. At the age of 5, her family was kicked out of the church because her parents got a divorce. And she hadn't stepped foot back in the church since then. And here I was going to be a pastor. Well, how's this going to work? I like country music. She liked Tool. We could figure that part out. Right? But in the process, she changed the way that I viewed how to do ministry. That's why I'm so dead set that whatever we do here at Messiah, if an unchurched person walks into our doors, that they will feel comfortable, they will not feel ashamed, and they will not feel lost. Because we just don't know where people are at on their journey of faith. And so she changed the way that I viewed how I do things from up here in the front and how we do things as a church. Providential relationships. This isn't a miracle. It wasn't a miracle that I didn't go to Raleigh-Durham and ended up in Council Bluffs, Iowa. It wasn't a miracle that I chose that table out of all the tables. It was divine intervention. I'm certain of it. And none of us should be surprised that one of the ways that God strengthens our faith is through relationships. We should not be surprised by that. Our relationship with God is the highest expression of relationship, but I believe it is in and through our relationships with one another that we come to a better understanding of who God is and what God is like. Amen? Amen. Yeah. And you know what? This is how Christianity began, folks. It was the disciples showing up and being in relationship with people. Right? And not only that, this is how Christianity began from the very beginning, when God sent God's Son to this world to interact, to be one of us, to be in relationship with one of us. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. The Message translation, the Word became flesh and moved into our neighborhood. In other words, Jesus is there. He's your neighbor. He's across the street. This was a part of it. Right? This providential relationship that Jesus had with other people. Jesus had been sent by God. And those people whose lives intersected with Jesus, they then went and intersected with other people's lives, and then their lives intersected with other people's lives, and then their lives intersected with other people's lives. It is the theory of multiplication. This is what it's about. This is how Christianity spread. It wasn't because we stood back, we sat down, we worshiped, and we didn't do anything else. It was proximity and relationship. Here's the Bible one. All right, it's one of my favorite ones. It often gets overlooked. All right, doesn't get a whole lot of attention. So Jesus calls a young guy by the name of Philip. He sees Philip, he says, "Philip, I want you to follow me." He had already invited Peter, Andrew, James, and John. All right? And he sees Philip, he says, "Philip, I want you to follow me." And Philip says, "Okay, I'll follow you, but hold off for just a minute." He's just like, "Nobody's told me this before." "What do you mean, hold off for a minute?" "No, just stay right there. I'll be right back." Okay. So Philip goes and he tells his buddy Nathaniel, "Nathaniel, guess what? I've seen the Messiah. You got to come. He just invited me to come follow him." Nathaniel's like, "Sure you did. Right? We've been waiting for the Messiah for 1,000 years, but you somehow now have found him. And he's talked to you, and he says to follow you." No, you're not going to believe this. We've met the Messiah. His name is Jesus, he's from Nazareth. And Nathaniel goes, wait. Right there. There's your problem. Can anything good come from Nazareth? Wait a minute, you don't even need to answer that. Philip, nothing good comes from Nazareth. It was just one of those cities, one of those towns. Nothing good comes of it. Nathaniel's not interested. Now, at this point, Philip could be like probably any one of us and just turn around and walk away and take no at face value. Because that's what most of us do. When we're told no, we give up. We walk away. Philip could have said, "Fine, all right, stay here with your itty-bitty, insignificant life. I'm going to go to follow Jesus, and we're going to change the world. And by the way, my name's going to be in the Bible, and your name's not going to be in the Bible, so there." Right? He could have done that. "Fine, you stay here. I'm going to follow Jesus. But one day you're going to regret it. You're going to look back and go, oh, I wish I would have followed Jesus." One day you're going to regret. I told you to buy that Google stock. I told you to buy that Apple stock, but you didn't do it. And you missed out. But that's not what Philip does. Philip does not give up. You know what he does? This is so powerful. He says, "Okay, look, Nathaniel, I get it. I get the Nazareth thing. I get it. I don't know where the Messiah is supposed to come from. But I'm telling you, look, just come and see. Just come and see." That's the greatest invitation. Right? I can't answer your questions. I don't have it all figured out. Just come and see. Now let me do this experiment. It's worked all morning long. Let's see if you can do it too. I want everybody to say those words. Just come and see. Just come and see. Okay, so we can do that. That's all there is. You know what? Hey, I don't have it all figured out. Hey, guess what? You know what? I don't have all the answers. Hey, you know what? I don't even know. I'm figuring it out myself. Just come and see. And because of that, because he didn't give up, Nathanael got a ringside seat to what God was doing and how God was going to change the world, and got a front row seat at the salvation of the world. And he would have missed it if Philip wouldn't have given up. You know, I could have taken Stacy's first no and said, well, that's just it, when we got together. But I didn't do that. You know what I did? I showed up, I did what only I could do, and I let God do the rest. I didn't beat her over the head with the Bible. I didn't yell at her through a megaphone. Read this! Jesus will save you! By the way, that never works. Don't be bullhorn guy. You know what works? People showing up, serving, and establishing a relationship. That's what works. And a year and a half later, 4 weeks after I was ordained, she was the first baptism that I ever performed as a Lutheran pastor. Don't give up. The author of Hebrews just said, that we just heard a few moments ago, it says, let us hold tightly without wavering. Yeah, I know things seem bleak. Yeah, I know we continue to hear about the decline of the mainline church, but we can't give up. We can't be scared to be told no. Or if we told no, we can't give up. What happens when the followers of Jesus don't give up? What happens? We can all be proactive in getting into relationships with people. This is the part that we can do. The author of Hebrews says, let us not neglect our meeting together. Guys, that is the echo of the church right now. There's one thing that we need to realize coming out of this pandemic is that we have hope in Jesus Christ and that we cannot neglect our meeting together. We need to motivate each other for good works and love towards one another. That's what it said. Let us motivate each other into good works. Let us motivate each other into loving our neighbor. It's my hope that that's what we will do. Show up, serve, establish relationships. If there is a summary of the last 3 weeks, it's that. Show up, serve, and establish relationships. Does that sound too hard? Huh? Sound hard? No, you don't need a PhD for any of that. You don't need a master's of theology. It's not complicated. If there's one thing that I can say in summary of today, it is this. If you want a summary of today's message, it's this. Proximity and relationship are faith builders. Proximity and faith are faith builders. When we see God's faithfulness in somebody else, it's easier for us to trust God with our relationship. Right? When we see God's sustaining grace and sustaining faith in the life of someone else, it's easier for us to trust. And that's what happened in my providential relationship with my wife. It's what happened in the providential relationship between Philip and Nathanael. Like I said last week, we have no idea what hangs in the balance of our decision to obey and to trust God. Whether we say yes or whether we say no. So today, I hope that you will show up, that you will serve, and that you will begin to establish relationships. Because you never know if you are that person for somebody else. In Jesus' name, amen.